Good morning. TGIF. Been a tough one. We've had some pretty heavy stuff go through this studio this week, both national and international. And if everybody in the world had set out on Monday morning to try and do something wrong, it wouldn't have been a far different result. Here we are on a Friday. Boy, there have been some miscreants along the way. And most of them have a direct effect upon us little ones, us, the electorate, us, the citizen, us, the free people. None of that seems to have mattered this week. And it's all come through this studio, just the same as it's gone through every other studio in the world that values any sort of free speech. But anyway, let's just go to the newspapers because it's important that we catch up with the international news. Will your local station people say, why do you look at the national news? Because there isn't one story on the front pages of this papers that doesn't affect us in this small community. It all comes home to roost. And the first one is the Times. And it says, NatWest's boss says sorry over the Farage row. Well, you've got to be deaf if you don't know what the Farage row is about. However, just to recap, Nigel Farage revealed that he had his bank account lifted from Coutts, which is the rich people's bank, but it's owned by NatWest. And without any, all they said was he wasn't rich enough. But it turns out it was a big fat lie. As what they did was they used own, as they call it, values. In other words, their political stance to actually do away with him, to get rid of him as a customer. And that is terrifying, that a bank has that power to do that. Well, it caused a real hoo-ha. But the point is that the chief executive, who is a lady, not that makes any difference, the chief executive and the BBC both are humming and hawing about saying sorry. In other words, they are prevaricating about whether they've done anything wrong. For the bank, it's bad enough. For the BBC, it's outrageous. It is absolutely outrageous that it should think that tampering with free speech and using and abusing position and power like that is any worth whatsoever. It didn't actually endorse this action, but what it did do is it misreported on the thing, and there's nothing wrong with misreporting. Well, yes, there is, of course. It shouldn't happen, but it does from time to time. We reporters, we journalists are human. We make mistakes. And the first thing that we do when we make these mistakes is we hold up our hands and say, sorry, got it wrong. And then we go back. As long as you don't actually get it wrong every time, it can be expected. But not the BBC. No. And it's getting deeper and deeper into the mire as an organization. Several papers are leading on the Nigel Farage apology from Coutts. The bank says it has deeply inappropriate comments made about him in a document on his suitability as a customer. The Times reports that Dame Alison Rose, the head of NatWest Group, said that Mr. Farage could have a NatWest account, but stopped short of offering him his Coutts account back. There's a lot is said about the House of Lords and awards and so on and so forth. I approve of giving people knighthoods and so on if they earn it. But the thing is, it's open now to huge abuse. She gets it by right, not because she's earned it, not because she's worth it, but by right. And that's my problem with the House of Lords, is with people who expected to be there, who saw it as a lollipop, not because they have made a significant contribution to our community, accepted by all. So just because she's a dame doesn't give her any special favors about whether she makes a decent decision or not. In fact, one wonders whether she should be head of a banking group with this sort of attitude at all. The Daily Mail, apology of sorts, it says. Apology of sorts. Yes. Oh, come on. There we go. Apology of sorts. Well, let's go to George Washington. If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep, to the slaughter. Yes, well, he most certainly gave a very succinct assessment of what we should expect. So, apology of sorts. This is the Mail. Apology of sorts from Coutts, but silence from the BBC. The bank boss fails to offer Farage an account back or say sorry for closing it, as a Facebook group of 10,000 claim they've also been shut out. The Mail reports that there are calls for the BBC to explain why it had suggested Mr. Farage no longer met the bank's financial threshold. The BBC had quoted people familiar with Coutts' move, who said it was a commercial decision. But a report from the bank's reputational risk committee said it did not think Mr. Farage was compatible with Coutts, given his publicly stated views that were at odds with our position as an inclusive organization. Here we go again, inclusive. For God's sake, let's get rid of all this inclusive rubbish. Yes, we want a society that gets along, but we try to force so many things instead of letting it happen naturally by doing the decent thing and looking at people for merit, for deserving where they stand, deserving what they get. Inclusive. I just don't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm sorry. The Daily Telegraph. Bank boss says sorry to Farage over accounts. The Telegraph also leads with Mr. Farage adding that the comments in the document did not reflect the view of the bank. It reports on a health survey that women are more likely to have high cholesterol than men, with nearly 2/3 suffering from a dangerous level. Well, okay, The Guardian. Taxpayer to fund 45% rise for the Royals, despite cost of living costs. And here we this is the Guardian, not entirely a friend to the royal family, says the taxpayer is to fund 45% pay rise for the royals, despite the cost of living crisis. Well, I mean, that's all a bit silly, really. You can't compare apples and pears. This is our head of state, and it doesn't matter whether you change it tomorrow to an elected head of state. We would still be responsible for making sure that it is well funded and that it represents us the very, very finest way. And whatever else, yes, they've kicked around the fringes a little bit. The royal family and then royalty represent this country extremely well. They do a superb job. The Guardian leads with these reports that King Charles III is to receive a huge pay rise despite the cost of living crisis. It reports plans to boost annual public funding of the monarchy by 45% from 2025, from 86 million to 125 million. The rise was reported in a review of royal funding published by the Treasury, the paper says. Well, now, having said that, I then shoot myself in the foot, really, because the next issue is Andrew, who the Mirror says Andrew's Epstein lies on Newsnight. Emails say the pair had dinner and swapped messages, contradicting what he said on TV. The Mirror focused on the Duke of York's 2019 interview on BBC Newsnight about his links with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing. The Mirror says it has approached him for comment. Right, okay. Now, the next story from the Financial Times is more alarming, I think, because we put our faith in renewable energy. And in fact, Stuart Dolby on Energy Matters talks about it a lot and explains some of the problems. But the sad news comes this morning that let's see, sorry. The sad news comes this morning that Vattenfall, a Swedish renewable energy plant company, has halted its offshore wind project. And this is a huge setback for renewable energy. The FC story is on how UK efforts to boost renewable energy have suffered a significant setback after one of the country's biggest offshore wind farms was halted. The Swedish energy giant Vattenfall is to shut down the development of the Norfolk Broads site. It's off the Norfolk coast. Market conditions deteriorated since it signed a contract to fix the price of electricity it sells for 15 years, the company said. Right. The Eye. 1 in 6 people will be stuck on NHS waiting lists if the doctor strike continues. UK's top medics are warning about that. And there is no question that this strike by consultants is going to have a significant effect on the NHS. It is going to mean the level of care will go down. It means that we won't be able to get, once again, the treatment we deserve. And all in all, it is a disaster. And whether, in fact, we don't have any pictures of the doctors that are talking about it, unfortunately. But 1 in 6 people will be stuck on the NHS waiting list if the doctor strikes continue. And the reports that an estimated 9 million people in England will be on NHS waiting lists if doctors' strikes continue. Dr. Tim Cooksley, president of the Society for Acute Medicines, told the paper that the window of opportunity to take action to halt the rise in waiting lists was rapidly closing, and that trusts were on the verge of having to draw up major incident plans. Now we go to another fury, and this one is about pensions, and the issue of pensions is raising its head, and there we go. Yeah. There we go, and this is the story to go with it, which appears in the Daily Express. It says, "Fury over plan to axe pension tax break." The Express leads on a story about how the Treasury is planning to scrap a tax break on pensions, which it says could lead to tens of thousands of people being out of pocket each year. The proposals will bring an end to an exemption that benefits those who inherit untouched pension pots. Oh, dear. Right, the biter bit. Yes, the biter bit, I'm happy to say, for once, because this next story is about protesters, and the story comes from the Metro. The Metro leads on Just Stop Oil protesters getting ringed in by a separate counter-protest group in London's Elephant and Castle. The rival group wore similar orange outfits and formed a human chain around them in a bid to stop a protest. A member of Just Stop Oil is quoted as saying, "We know disruption isn't comfortable, but it's necessary." So there you go. The Sun has a story about some star being beaten, ITV beating BBC to the contract. I really can't get excited about that. The Daily Star, though, and it always gives us a lovely chuckle, doesn't it? It always gives us a lovely chuckle. And today it says, its headline is, "Are they quackers?" The Daily Star leads with a story about how people are reportedly being fined for feeding ducks. They're also being fined for flying kites and climbing trees. Are they crackers? The paper asks. Also featuring on the front page is a story about a police hunt for an animal they believe is a lioness, which is stalking the outskirts of Berlin. Oh my goodness gracious me. What on earth is going on? Really, what on earth is going on? Is you can't climb a tree. I don't know why, but all morning while I've been preparing the news is the song from you'll know the movie. Let's go fly a kite. Let's go fly a kite. And when I saw this story, I thought, my goodness me, how can we get our ducks in a row if, in fact, we won't let people feed the ducks, fly a kite, or climb a tree? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It really does. Now, the temperature is only 16 centigrade, and it's only partly sunny. Although I'm looking across at the courthouse here in Lewes, the Crown Court, and it is bathed in sunshine and looking lovely as a result of that. In fact, I would say the only thing that mars the lovely facade of this building, the Crown Court, is like everywhere else, they have to stick notices in the window, which from a little distance look like tatty pieces of paper. It looks like that notice board that you see in a town square is for sale, a pair of used shoes, socks go with it, that sort of thing. But anyway, there's a breeze along with the temperature of 20, which is a bit down on recent days, but nonetheless still a substantially warm day. So that's what you can expect today. Now, let me just make a comment. There are two things that I really want to make a comment about. One is that the power that the banks and other big organizations have taken unto themselves and justify it with a righteous approach to dealing with their customers has got beyond the pale. And it is time the Treasury has threatened to do something about the licenses of banks who decide that they can choose on, if you like, political grounds, but because of what somebody thinks, whether they can have a bank account with them or not. And that is outrageous, but it's not only outrageous, it's frightening. It strikes at the very heart of a free society. And it's been coming to this for some time. We're not a free society if we have to fear actions based on somebody does not agree with us. The social media people are pretty bad at that. They set up logarithms, which, if it's to them socially unacceptable, that you get points against yourself. You get taken down. You get stopped from using it. Now, if in fact these were potty little things, private enterprise, and you had a choice whether you use them or not, that would be one thing. But they have become so huge and powerful that once again it is taking freedom of speech in vain. And that must not happen. It must not happen. The other thing that has been of considerable concern this week is that the local council, the district council, apparently struck a deal with a charity. Now, charities supposedly are good things. We're not arguing with the charity. But what we are asking is, it has been given something like, I think, a 5-year lease on our old site for the district council offices, which have been cleared out. They've been given a site, and the estimated cost of running this is $250,000 a year, and they are being given this for free. They pay no rent. That is obscene. That is a total misuse of our money. And before we actually started, indeed, on social media, of course, it started as the dreadful Tories, and there must be people on the board of Charleston, it was the Lib Dems and the Greens who made the deal prior to the last election. And in fact, on this particular occasion, the Tories voted against this deal. So if you have got any grace about you at all, you will grudgingly admit that the Tories got this one right. And that those who hold them up for absolutely everything, blame for everything, need to have their fingers slapped. They need to have their fingers slapped. It is not good enough to just take willy-nilly. The other thing that is, this came about in Stephen Catlin's time. Dear Stephen Catlin, whom we are honouring as best we can. He died about a month ago now. But the District Council failed to submit to the Charities Commission a set of books concerning the Stanley Turner ground and a ground in sorry, looking, I thought they were going to come in. And the ground in I think it's the Neville estate area, one of the estates anyway, is that no accounts were filed. And councillors are trustees. They are responsible. And they've made all sorts of excuses as to why these accounts have not been filed. There was some trouble with the overall accounts for the council. These are the sort of things that you do not hear about. And it's time that they got used to fessing up. Listen, we've got real problems here. And once again, there were 10 different reasons. The accountants, the auditors were lax. We've had to fire one auditor and take on another. And so we were starting all over again. Yeah, well, we all understand those excuses because we use them ourselves for our personal tax. But it should not be the case for a council who've got lots of people looking after these things. So there are some nasty, nasty things happening. And it's about time that we scratched the surface and brought them to light and got people to admit to what's happening. The censure of getting it wrong, of screwing it up, is far less and far less toxic than keeping things hidden and pretending everything in the garden is lovely. Not at all appropriate, not at all proper. Okay, we're taking a break now, as we normally do. We'll be back at 9:30. We shall talk to you for a little while. And then somewhere around 10:15, we shall have the lovely Melissa Concy from New York letting us know what's happening over there. Until then, I hope we are going to say toodle pip. Right, okay. Yes, I'm smiling. And I think it's important that we do smile. Keep on smiling. Because if we start to get down in the mouth, we shall droop and droop and droop and droop until in the end our jaw will hit the pavement. Apart from being broken, it won't behoove us very well to say to our fellow citizen, good morning. So what I'll do is I'll say, good day.